What income do you actually need to be in the top 10% in Australia? A lot of people guess this number completely wrong, usually because they mix up individual versus household income, or they compare themselves to friends in Sydney and assume that's normal. And here's the twist. You can technically be top 10% on paper and still feel like you're barely keeping up, especially with rent, mortgages, childcare, and the cost of living right now. So in this video, I'll break it down in a simple way. The difference between individual and household income, what top 10% really means, the ballpark numbers most people are looking for, and why being top 10% doesn't automatically mean you feel rich. Part 2. First, what does top 10% income actually mean? When someone says top 10% income, they mean this. If you line up everyone's income from lowest to highest, the top 10% are the people earning more than 90% of everyone else. Sounds simple until you realize there are different ways to measure income. Here are the big ones. 1. Individual versus household. Individual income is just you. Household income combines partners and sometimes includes other adults living in the same home. These two can be wildly different. A single person on 150K might be top 10% individually, but a couple on 90KD 46, 180KD dollar, household still strong. But the comparison group changes. 2. Before tax versus after tax. Most datasets are based on pre-tax income or taxable income, not what hits your bank account. 3. All adults versus full-time workers. This one is huge. If a dataset includes students, part-time workers, retirees, and people not working, the top 10% threshold can look lower than you'd expect, because lots of people have low or zero taxable income in any given year. So whenever you see a top 10% number, the first question should be, top 10% of who exactly? Part 3. The ballpark numbers. People mean now, let's get to what you probably came for. The rough income range that often puts you in the top 10% in Australia. Because the exact number changes each year and different sources measure slightly differently, I'm going to give you realistic ranges rather than pretending there's one magic number. A. Top 10% individual income, ballpark. For individual annual income, top 10% is commonly somewhere in the range of around $130,000 to $160,000 plus per year, pre-tax, taxable income ballpark. Some years it's a bit lower, some years it's higher depending on the dataset and whether it includes all adults or only workers. But generally, if you're an individual earning in the mid to high $100K range, you're often knocking on the door of top 10% territory. B. Top 10% household income, ballpark. For household income, the range is usually higher because you're combining incomes. As a broad ballpark, you might see top 10% household income around roughly $250,000 to $300,000 plus per year. Combined household income ballpark. Again, it depends on household size and definitions. But if a household is earning closer to $250,000 plus, it's often in that top slice. C. Quick context. Top 1%. Why it matters. People also confuse top 10% with top 1%. Top 1% is a different planet, often multiple hundreds of thousands for individuals, and much higher for households, especially when business income and investments are involved. So if you're top 10%, you're doing very well. But you might not feel rich because top 1% is where the extreme numbers live. Part 4. Why top 10% might not feel rich. This is the part that shocks people. Even if you're in the top 10% by income, you might still feel average or even stressed because income is not the same as wealth. Here's why. 1. Housing eats everything. In places like Sydney and parts of Melbourne, a high income can disappear into the huge mortgage, high rent, childcare, commuting, insurance, utilities. So you can be top 10% and still feel like you're running on a treadmill. 2. Lifestyle inflation. A lot of people don't get rich, they just upgrade everything. Nicer car, nicer suburb, private school, constant eating out subscriptions. Bigger holidays, so income rises, but savings don't. 3. Taxes are real. At higher incomes, tax takes a bigger bite. So the gap between sounds rich and feels rich can be massive. 4. Household versus individual confusion. A single person earning 150K may feel comfortable. A household earning 250K with two kids, childcare, and a monster mortgage might feel stretched. So being top 10% is impressive, but it doesn't automatically equal financial freedom. Part 5. The best way to use this info instead of using top 10% as an ego metric. Use it as a planning tool. Here are 3 smart ways to use it. 1. Benchmark your goals. If your goal is to reach top 10%, you now have a rough target range. 2. Separate income success from wealth success. Income is what you earn. Wealth is what you keep and grow. If you earn a lot but save nothing, you're high income, not wealthy. 3. Compare within the right group. If you're a full-time worker, comparing yourself to all adults may not be the most meaningful comparison. A better question might be, how do I compare to people my age, in my city, in full-time work? Part 6. How to move toward top 10% without ruining your life. If you want to increase your chances of reaching that top 10% income range in Australia, here's the simple, practical path. 1. Build high-value skills. In Australia, higher-paying paths often include: the pattern is the same, skills that are scarce and valuable get paid. 2. Change your environment. Sometimes the fastest raise is switching companies, switching industries, or moving to where demand is higher. 3. Don't sabotage it with lifestyle inflation. If your income goes up, but your spending goes up the same amount, you'll never feel the benefit. 4. Convert income into assets. This is the big one. Even if you reach top 10% income, the real win is using that income to build investment superannuation, a strong emergency buffer, and eventually a high net worth. Because income can stop tomorrow, assets keep working. Part 7. So what income puts you in the top 10% in Australia? In broad ballpark terms, individual, often around 130 kal to 160 KNLRs PAS household, often around 250 KNLRs to 1300 KNLRs. But remember, the exact threshold depends on the year, the dataset, and whether you're looking at all adults or just workers. And most importantly, top 10% income doesn't automatically mean you're rich. It means you earn a lot. To feel wealthy, you need to turn that income into assets and options. If you found this helpful, subscribe to Aussie Wealth Simplified for simple Australian finance videos. And comment below, do you want the next video on top 10% net worth in Australia? Or top 1% income in Australia?